There was an ancient prophecy that chronicled about the threats, upheavals, disasters, and adversities that often took place, especially during the fire horse and the fire goat years. So much so that this was documented into a historical text during the Song dynasty, known as the Bingding Tortoise Mirror. It is no wonder why many Chinese historians would deem the years of the fire horse and the year of the fire goat as the crimson horse and red goat calamity, due to the immense fire element at the top and bottom, which could rapidly transform every other element including water, metal, wood, and earth, thus impacting many spheres of our lives. If you haven't already known, year 2026 will be known as the year of the fire horse, whereas year 2027 will be known as the year of the fire goat. But let's now focus into 2026. Here is the 2026 fire horse yearly Bazi chart. Take a closer look at the 2026 chart. There is a horse at the year pillar, a tiger sign at the month pillar, and there's a rooster sign at the day pillar. Then compare this to the year 1930's annual Bazi chart. The horse, the tiger, and the rooster signs also appeared at the similar pillars. Perhaps this could signal us there could be many important takeaways by looking at some of the major events that took place in the year 1930. As we knew that year 1930 was where many throughout the world felt the deep impact from the 1929 Wall Street crash that subsequently led to the Great Depression. The then US President Hoover signed Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act into law, which exacerbates the impact of the Great Depression throughout the world. Year 1930 also marked the breakthrough year for the German Nazi and more importantly for Adolf Hitler's political aspirations, where he successfully capitalized from the impact of the Great Depression that seriously affected Germany. Another highlight is that many of Europe's top intellectuals, scholars, scientists began to plan their migrations to the US from year 1930 onwards. On the other hand, there were three major happenings which took place in 1978 that caught my attention. First, it was the Iranian Revolution. Secondly, the Communist Party of China had launched its constitutional reform and opening up in year 1978. And thirdly was the establishment of China-US diplomatic relations, which was signed on December 1978. The reason I included these three major events that took place in 1978 is because the 1978 Bazi chart also quite similarly resembles to the 2026 Bazi. Having said that, we must not forget to include the most recent past year of the fire horse, which was the year 1966. This was the year where the outbreak of Great Cultural Revolution took place in China during the month of May and lasted until the year 1976. Year 1966 also see one of the largest nuclear weapon related accident involving US military that happened in Spain. And this was the year that France under President Charles de Gaulle withdrew from NATO Integrated Military Command during the height of the Cold War. At this point, let's look back at the 2026 annual Bazi chart once again. And remember, the focus point here is that the chart contains two being fire elements. One is the fire horse pillar, and another one is the fire tiger pillar. Now let's compare the 2026 chart to the 2014's annual Bazi chart. And we can see both Bazi charts carry the appearance of the fire horse and fire tiger pillars. Therefore, it may be worth to glimpse into some of the top global headlines that took place 12 years ago. So in 2014, there was the annexation of Crimea and the beginning of war in eastern Ukraine. Then in year 2014, we also witnessed one of the largest protests in Hong Kong, as well as the deadliest Ebola outbreak in current times. Year 2014 also sees some major tragedies of our lifetime, such as the MV Sewol Ferry tragedy, which killed more than 300 people in South Korea. Then there was the disappearance of flight MH370, as well as the flight MH17 tragedy where the plane was downed by a missile in eastern Ukraine. The fire horse pillar that appeared in the 2014 Bazi chart also brought light to two of the largest scandals, where things began to quietly surface towards the end of 2014. One of them was the Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal, and the other one was the 1MDB scandal that was regarded as one of the largest financial scandals in modern history. Now, from these past happenings, and since we are in the midst of the most transformative period, plus the prominent double fire element that contained in the 2026 Parser chart, are we willing to anticipate more revelations of huge scandals throughout 2026? Or anticipate that the US to further isolate itself and impose more threats and volatilities in global trade and finance scenes? Perhaps, are we willing to anticipate the possibility of power vacuum in the US? Due to the internal fights, especially with the US top power brokers within his own government and within his own Republican Party members? Or the power vacuum in the White House could be due to his potential health issues? Maybe, what about anticipating huge economic collapse or downturn before 2025 ends and throughout 2026, which could lead to major social unrest, especially in the US? Next, can we also anticipate a dramatic shift in the US-China relations as we move towards 2026 and 2027? Or are you willing to be inclined to anticipate nuclear weapons-related accidents as well as military miscalculations due to the double fire elements in 2026? And most of all, are we willing to anticipate more extreme weather around the globe? Stay tuned to my channel as I'll elaborate more of the forecast of 2026 Parser in my next video.